Hello everyone. Welcome to the Out of Box Developer. If you're looking after cool ideas and you're a developer, you are in the right place right now. And you might be really surprised because it's not Bruno here. But yeah, today I'll be the host for this session, and I will be inviting two Java champions here to talk about a topic. And of course, I bring Bruno here, but now today he'll be our guest. So, hello, Bruno. How are you, man?
Hey Yugo, how you doing? So good to be here. So good to be here with all this great community. So wherever you're watching this on YouTube, on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on So Java's channel, whatever you are, it's great to be here with you. Today we're gonna have a good discussion here about what skills do you need to stay relevant, right? So I think that's a great topic. Stay tuned.
Great. And of course, our next Java champion that will be contributing in this discussion today, Mani from London, right, Mani?
That's correct. Thank you, Yugo, for having me here. And yeah, I was a bit surprised as well. Where did Bruno go? But here it is. New Bruno is Hugo, and Hugo is Bruno. Thank you for having me here. And good
Great.
evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on the planet watching this show. And thank you for being here. And this is going to be another exciting session.
Yeah, it's
Great.
great. I see lots of people here. I see Fernanda. Hey, Fernanda. How you doing? She's from Brasilia. I see Max. So it's from So Java. He is here too. And Pedro. Hey, Pedro. How you guys doing? So everyone, lots of people already here saying hello. So if you can hear us, you can see us, please say hello in the chat here or whatever the chat is in your screen, just so we can make this very, very interactive conversation.
Yes, please send the chat today. When you send any question here, I will be happy to answer. And today, I will be looking for the chat and give some rest to Bruno, and he'll be more willing to bring more deeper into the content also. So a bit of rest, right, Bruno?
Yeah, so that's great. So I see Anderson saying great expectations. All right, so let's make this work then.
Fine. So today we have planned to talk about the important skills to stay relevant in whatever you are working right now as a developer, as a manager of development team, or leader on developer team using AI. So I think it's a quite broad question, right? If I ask. Important skills. What is important skills you have to have in our career? So I don't know who wanna start with the to bring the first idea here. Manny, Bruno.
Come on, Manny. You
I'll,
start with.
I'll, I'll actually give it to Bruno because I'm usually starting off and then I take 15 minutes of the show. Rather, why don't you take the valuable 5 minutes and I'll take the 2 minutes of the show?
Okay, that's great. So one thing, look, I'm gonna tell you the most important skill that you should have in your life in general, right? Is to be curious and ask questions. So I want you that's watching us asking questions in the chat, so we can discuss those things more, right? But look, I'm going to start with the thing that I just sent. I just sent an email to my list, about, I'd say, like half an hour ago or something like this, talking about, three things that I think are very, very important. There's one very important skill that we have that we love to talk about, that is productivity, right? We keep saying, oh, we got to be more productive. We got to do, we got to work better. We got to be smarter. We got to be more productive. The IDE says, oh, this IDE is going to make you more productive. The API says, oh, this API is going to make you more productive. Productivity is such a big thing. And productivity is not one skill. It's a set of ideas and a set of skills. So 3 things I said on the email today that I think is very important. First of all, if you want to be productive, right, you take small steps, right? People want to do everything at the same time, everything at once. You want to take those huge projects. And when you look at those projects, like, oh man, so many things to do, and you get scared and you get afraid. And because you get scared and afraid, what do? You procrastinate, right? You delay, right? You're afraid of starting. You're afraid of finishing, right? So all of these is so overwhelming to your brain. So if you want to be productive, you got to do small steps, right? So that's the thing. The tip number one I said in the email. Tip number two, right, is do exactly what we're doing here. Do it with a community. Do it with friends. Do it with other people, right? Because once you join with other people, you are more willing, you're more interested, you're more committed. I think that's the best word. You're more committed, right? So, for example, I have here right now, I was telling both Yugo and Mani that I don't have internet, right? I'm actually calling in from my phone, right? From my 3G. And so, but I'm here. I committed to be here with Mani and Yugo and you. I committed to be here with you, Euclides, with you, Anderson, with you, Max, with you, Fernanda. I was committed to be here with you. So no matter what happened, right? It doesn't care if my boss called me or if my internet is down or if I have problems. It doesn't matter, right? I'm committed to be here with you. So if you want to increase your commitment, go do things with other people. Even if it is just to meet, just sit down and work on different projects. We're going to do this tomorrow, right? So me and Yugo, tomorrow at 9 a.m., we're going to be working with 5 other people on the Brazilian Java group, So Java, right? We're going to be working on, there's lots of things to do, the website and the mailing list, all kinds of things we're going to do. So we're all going to sit together, right? And we're going to work in different parts of the project, right? But we're going to be doing this together. And I think that Mani and Yugo can talk about the project they're doing together as an example, right? So yes, go do, Max says, software development is a social activity. That's very good. We can talk about this, Max. But yes, that's a great way for you to do things together, is commit with others. And the third tip I gave in the email a few minutes ago was, to do the important things, right? Productivity is not to do the wrong things faster, right? Lots of people I want to be more productive, so let me just go and code a lot, right? And then you code badly, right? So that's not the idea. The idea is for you to be productive, is for you to do the right things, for you to do the most important things. So before you start anything, right? How about you spend 2, 3, 5 minutes thinking, what is the most important thing I can do right now? If I had 1 hour of productivity time, if I have 15 minutes of productive time, if I have, 5 minutes of productive time, what is the most important thing I can do in the next 5 minutes, in the next 30 minutes, in the next an hour, right? So if you think about that, think about the most important thing and you do the important things. So if you do the important things with friends, right, and do a small step at a time, you're gonna rock your productivity for sure.
Yeah, very, very well said, Bruno. I mean, I couldn't add any more to those 3 points because they're quite overarching. Firstly, I have been actually saying this to somebody just this week that has gone by, that slow motion is the fastest motion or way to move forward. And when you do things in slow motion, you don't miss out. You see, when you do things fast, you miss out. And even if you then do it iteratively, it's still expensive. But if you do things in slow motion and you do it iteratively, it may seem you're taking a lot more time, but actually you're gaining so much momentum because you're not missing out and you're course correcting at the right time. And even though it's like the hare and the tortoise race, right? We've read about it, right? Mm-hmm. What was the moral of the story? Somebody won, but somebody won much better later on, right? So that's the analogy. So that first tip of yours about small steps is also about slow motion, right? They kind of go hand in hand, because if you take big steps, it's actually not slow motion. Big steps is going fast forward. And fast forward doesn't work in the world of software. At least I've been seeing and have seen people try to jump thinking, oh, they're showing something really impressive. But actually, it's not going to be impressive if you take some big leaps, because when you're running the marathon, this is what I was taught as well when I was training. You don't accelerate the first 30 45 minutes of the race. You accelerate very slowly. You start off, you warm yourself up, and you keep steady, steady, steady. You build up your energy, but you don't expend it, you don't waste it. And towards the last 10 or 15 minutes of the race, you gradually accelerate, 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 and then you really speed up at the last 10 or 5 minutes, and the last minute you're really the fastest. That's how you're going to win the marathon. Because otherwise, if you do the opposite, you're already exhausted after 15 minutes, and you're going to take the rest of the 45 minutes, an hour and a half to finish, because that's what you've done to yourself, right? No slow motion, you've taken big leaps. And so I mean, I couldn't add any more things to it, because it'll kind of take away the value of what you've already said. And yes, so software development is a social activity. You don't just do it yourself, you got to do it with other people. And as I shared in the chat, that what you share grows. You grow, they grow, right? And there's another adage that when you share knowledge, it grows. When you share wealth, it divides, it diminishes. But the knowledge, when shared, grows. So what better way to share but with your community? And yeah, prioritization, importance. That's why when you do slow motion, you can start seeing the importance of things much better. And also when you do it in a social way, in interaction with other people, then you realize that, oh, okay, that person said this, but actually I'm saying this, and the other person's saying this. But because you're doing slow motion, you can course correct, right? Otherwise, you will be like, you did it fast, 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 and you missed out some people or people's or everyone's opinions or ways, and then you have to recorrect and retract and correct yourself. So yes, that's kind of my adage to what you've already said, and that makes sense. If we do these three things well, we will be relevant in our field, right? Because these are the core principles or building blocks, founding principles, you can say, of staying relevant.
Good ideas, and I've seen here some comments from Anderson and Max. Anderson says, "How nice to hear that. Some old school managers need to hear that." And Max says, "Sorry."
Yeah, let's talk about this. Then talk about Max, right? So I think when Anderson said that, Mani, he said that when you start talking about going slow but sure, right? And I think that do you think that we have, Mani, a lot of pressure on moving fast when from our managers, from our customers, from other people in the team that's doing something very fast is the thing that everyone wants to happen or something like this?
Yeah, you're spot on there. So there's multiple pressures here. You've got peer pressure, you've got client pressure, you've got employer pressure, but you also have your self expectations, right? You want to do, and that's where the peer pressure comes in a way as well. You want to do everything, and you want to put all of your skills in one thing, because you want to just put your big foot forward, and present yourself and show to the world and complete the solution in that one go. That's the thing that's causing this issue here, where we are not going slow motion, right? So that's the key factor. The pressure is actually resulting in you exploding and trying to put everything in one go, in one big step, which is contrary to what we were saying earlier. Small steps means you just do a grain at a time, right? Not like the whole bag of wheat, of grains.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can add something here, because I've been a developer and also got a manager position now, technical manager positions. And some common things that I see is that most of the time managers who is very business driven managers won't see what kind of consequences doing so fast some stuff will bring to him. So he will always opt for things that will be in the time, in his deadline, or much earlier than that. And as developers, I believe that we have to show them what would be the consequence, what he is losing by driving all those development in so fast pace. So what he's losing, like Manny just said here, right? So that's something very interesting point that might be part of our the development team might be responsibilities. Can I say roles?
It's also kind of human nature, right? See, we are not all
Exactly.
born. We are not all born knowing how to see. Software is one of the things that we do incrementally, right? Other things cannot be done in that fashion, right? May or may not be able to be done in that fashion. But software, the better solutions come when we do it in single or incremental steps. And we are not all. No one is born having those skills. We're all born knowing to do things in the waterfall way, and big steps, and all that stuff, because it works in the other areas of our lives better than in software development.
In software.
But then when we started to write software, we forget that software development has to be done slightly differently, and hence the conundrum, right? Because we don't switch gears so quickly from from fast motion or fast forward to slow motion. And that's the other thing as well, right? Because as Bruno rightly pointed out, the real important thing, pressure, is making us do the wrong things.
So Pedro says here, yeah, we pressure ourselves even more than the manager sometimes, right? So, do you guys think that we do? Actually, there's one thing that I wrote this past week. Also, I talk about burnout, right? Lots of people reaching out to me to discuss burnouts, and I think that a lot of times when we pressure ourselves more than everyone else, right? So we end up not having the results that we're looking for because, of course, we are pressuring ourselves more than everyone else, right? And so we might risk burnout. You know, is
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great statement from Anderson there. Flash programming is not the same as quality programming, for sure.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Good point there, because I think that's happening in many places. Many organizations are probably doing that, because quality is not in numbers. Quality is not in quality is not in speed. Actually, quality is a slow process, right? If you want to do something that is high quality, it's like for example, you go to a painter or a musician, and I always give the example of painter. You hand the painter a canvas, some paint and paintbrush and whatever they need, and you ask them to do something and say, I give you 5 minutes, get me something done. You've ruined his creativity right there. And he or she will hand the canvas and the paintbrush and everything and say, hey, thanks, I'm not in the mood, maybe come to me a little bit later, and I could probably do it in 2 minutes, but not just now, right? Maybe he'll be diplomatic and turn you away. But you give a musician an instrument and don't, or leave an instrument somewhere, and the musician discovers it, and there are no constraints, picks up the instrument, plays their best, right? They didn't even know, someone records it and plays it back. And so no pressures there, no constraints, no definitions, no expectations, and you get the best results, right? Or better results than the previous example where you go to the artist, give 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. This is what I see in interviews, right? They will interview you like on things like codility and all that stuff. We went through this conversation the last time. And they'll do algorithmic tests and all. Then I asked them, do you actually do this at your workplace? Do you have like a timer that you set on somebody's table? And then if they don't finish it, you don't merge their pull request. I don't know what you do after that if they don't finish it, but then you tell them it's been more than 5 minutes, we cannot merge that pull request. And then when you merge the pull request, you never talk to them, you never tell them why we think this needs to be changed. You just reject the pull request, right? Do you do all of these things? So that's the other analogy part of it.
That's great. That's great. So you just mentioned here creativity, right? So what do you think, Hugo? Programming is a creative work?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's from Pedro, right? Who
Yes, right. Yes.
asked the
Pedro,
question. Yeah.
yes.
Well, I believe so. There's that's why it's so difficult to estimate effort to deliver something in software development, because there's a much more room for creativity than just repeating the job, the task. To connect parts and then think all the things come together and then design all the solution. That's quite tough task, and that require a lot of creativity to solve some problems. And we are very, I believe that very close to like people like to say to distinguish soft and hard skills, and I think that software in the soft groups, that means the creativity part. So that means that non-repeatable, that you have to figure out, think about that, and everything on.
Yeah, so there's no definition on how to get something right in software, right?
Yeah.
And there are no rules. You make the rules as you go, and you're right most of the time, more or less. And yes, it's a creative science. It's not like making a bridge or a building, which requires different kind of skills, right? And you have a set plan there, which never changes. Like, imagine an architect changing a plan every 15 days, like we do with sprints, like saying, okay, no, now the wall is going to be like this, the door's not going to be there, the window is going to be there, and they keep doing that for every floor. Then you have a different building at the end of the whole iteration, right? And it has never happened, right? Imagine you do that with a bridge. You have like you have a zigzag bridge instead of a straight bridge. So with software we can do that. It's very malleable, and nobody will know that plan changed
Right.
at every increment, because we will only see the last bit, because it'll all be impacted all across the solution, as opposed to just some parts of the solution.
Yeah, no one's gonna. I know software allows you to do that. No one is gonna know that the plan changed. But
Exactly.
reality is that the plan will have changed and maybe have affected everything, right? So the
Yeah.
quality is lower. The project might be completely crazy and nuts right now, right? Because it was not done the right way, right? So yeah, you know,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's and the thing
because
is, though,
because it's possible, it doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do.
exactly. Yeah.
I think I want to connect this question with the Max question here. So being creative and also a social activity, is it true assertion? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So software is one of those industries where it's not only a social in terms of that lots of different people participate, but it's also it's very multidisciplinary, right? For any remember that software is just the means that that we use, the technology that we use to solve a problem, right? So software we get involved with developers and database people and sysadmins and DevOps. IT learner talk about DevOps, right? So we have all those people, but also we have the customer, right? We have people that are going to use the software. We have marketers. We have salespeople, right? We have it's a very very big ecosystem, right? So and um, so it's very multidisciplinary, right? I think that they're not every industry is as multidisciplinary as software developer, right? So you get, for example, I don't know, maybe when you doing a movie in this in the in the big Hollywood studios, right? They have all kinds of different people, like we have in software, right? So all kinds of different people are working, and so because it's very multidisciplinary, it requires a lot of communication, right? And so and when you say about a social activity, like Max says, in a way, right? What is social activity? Is an activity that requires us to communicate with other people, right? And so yeah, software requires us to communicate with other people all the time, right? And that's one thing that baffles me sometimes when developers they think that it's okay to not communicate well. But remember, we write software, right? So writing is a communication process, right? So when we write software, we are communicating. We're not communicating with the machine. We're communicating with another developer. And so basically, doing software, right, is extremely important. Communication we're talking about skills, right? Let's get back to the skills, right? So what are these skills for you to move ahead, for you to keep up to date, for you to be relevant in the industry? Communication, guys. Communication is amazing skills, because once you learn how to express your ideas in a concise, logic, making sense way, that helps you to speak, that helps you to write, that helps you to write code, right? So I think that's so. Yes, for Max, right? So software development is all about communication, right? Everything we do in software development is about communication, and so I do think it's a very social activity.
So interestingly, if you remember last time's conversation, remember we were trying to define quality, and I mentioned that quality is an experience that is an effect of the communication from the other side, that is the software. And the communication is again broken into a couple of components there, right? There's flow and interaction, which is the components that gives you that experience and that feeling that about the software, whether it's a good feeling or not so good feeling or in between, defines your feeling of the quality you get. So that's the communication from the point of view of the software giving you or you with the software. But the quality of the work done is the result of the communication between the people or the components or the entities that is doing the work, isn't it? So if they have been communicating well and being friendly to each other and nice to each other, and being most of the time in sync with their ideas and their point of views, then the feeling will be great amongst that team and that organization. And I think it's really good, links very well with the email you sent out the other day about Conway's Law. And I think I'll hand this over to you, Bruno, because you actually stole it from me now, and you actually ran even further and even better than I could have ever done, because I just kept reading that email a couple of times, and it's got high quality content about Conway's Law. So take it over, Bruno. This is for you now.
Right. So yeah. So that was something I was thinking about. Based on our conversation here, but also based on a discussion that I had with some people in Telegram this past week. And this whole idea of communication. When you think about Conway's Law, and you could have written so much more in that email, but when you think about Conway's Law, and remember, the Conway's Law talks about how the software reflects the organization of the team, right? So if you're a very centralized team or very centralized company that everyone works on the same room, for example, you're naturally going to do a more monolith, a more integrated software, right? Because everyone is there. There's very easy communication between people, and because what Conway's Law proposes is that the difficult communications, right? When the communication is difficult between two groups, that's where we're going to have a software interface, for example, right? That's where you're going to have a software communication issue too, right? And so when I was thinking about that, and I think about all the discussion we're having about communications, right? And I was thinking that, why does that happen, right? And it happens because it's hard to communicate between people. So if you apply Conway's Law to you, right, to yourself, right, the quality, the design that you're going to do in your code, the design that you're going to do in your software, the design that you're going to solve the problem will depend on the level of your communication, right? How well you communicate with others, how well you discuss the problem, how well you present the ideas, how well you think about the ideas. Because remember, it's very weird, right? But even when we do things, it is a communication inside our brains, right? We have this back and forth. How do I solve that? Oh, I can use this. I can do that. I can do. It happens inside our brains, right? So, and look, all of these are the same neurons. Remember, it's all the same neurons. The neurons that you use to communicate with other people are the neurons that you use to think, right? Most people think in words, right? We don't think in, you can say, oh yeah, we can think in image. Yes, you can. But most people, when we're reasoning something, we are thinking in words, right? So if you don't practice, if you don't exercise, if you don't improve your neurons, they're able to speak, they're able to clarify, they are able to externalize things. How can you think clear enough to go and do and write your code, right? So I really, really think that if you apply Conway's Law to you, right, it's an amazing idea that helps you understand how can you be a better developer, how can you design code better, how you can solve problems better.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said, Bruno, because I don't know if I was trying to explain it in the same way the last time about the definition of quality, but
Mm-hmm.
it starts with you first, but it's also interaction and flow within yourself. If there's disruption of flow and there is no interaction within your own being, you can't really express what you really want to do, right? It's like an artist or a musician. I'm going to go to that example again, who's not able to express their creative ideas in the form of a painting or in the form of notes, right? And if that happens, then there is no proper painting or music, right? And but if there is an interaction and flow with between their being, brings out the best out of them, you have a very good painting or a very good music at that point in time, right? So, and if software, and have agreed, software is a creative process, which means, going back to what you just said, Bruno, is that interaction and flow is resulting in better quality output. And that, again, connected with Conway's law, makes good sense because, as Conway's law says, the result of what you do is the result of the interaction and the complexity of what's going on within you, all the communications within you, right? If you are the organization, which you are in a sense, then that's the result of it. And then when you're in a group of two, then the organization is two, and then so on and so forth. It's a community of 50 people, that's the organization. Maybe there are only 10 people active, but at that time, then those 10 people are organization, and so on and so forth. So it applies very well, starting with one person, you, and then it spreads out, it expands.
Right. And so now the question is, Mani, what are the skill that you need, right, to do this, right? So when you talk about communication, right, communication is so many different things, right? So, what would be the skill that you would prefer, aside from writing code, right? We already kind of say that writing code is communication, but aside from that, what would be the skill that you think would be better for people to learn and apply to improve their communication skills?
I think it's a great question that you bring in, because I was just thinking about, what are the relevant skills? And, people may not think about this, but it's quite important. Listening. Mm-hmm. And when I do that, when I say that, I immediately think about Bruno, because Bruno, and I've been saying this for the last year since I've been on the show with him, is an absolutely amazing listener. And it doesn't matter how many people say how many things or where these messages come from. He's always listening, and he's done it so well in so many years that he actually picks almost nearly all the time the best point in that spectrum of time to bring out and talk about. I never worry about inviting Bruno at any event. Like, we had this session where we needed an AI speaker and we were running short of it. And I was speaking to EL and said, EL, let's bring Bruno in. So EL says, Bruno? I said, yeah, Bruno is the best speaker. He can talk about anything because he picks the best points. He listens very well. EL says, done. Let's call him in. But Bruno is smart. He knows lots of AI people, and he pulled one of them in, and he actually exited the thing. But that's beside the point. Coming back to it, is Bruno is excellent. He listener. And this is what is number one skill. Listen. Because when you listen, and you not just hear, but listen, is you process what's going on. Right. And it's different types of listening, right? It's more like listening and not immediately jumping in with a solution, right? We always like to solutionize things, which is not what we want to do. What we want to do is listen and try to triangulate around what that person is saying. If there's no clarity, ask questions and get clarity. That is also part of the listening process. Only when you understood well enough, then your next skill should be applied. And your next skill would be whatever the next skill is going to be. But the first skill is going to be listening. And then there's a semi-skill in there that's needed, patience. Because if you don't have patience, you're not going to be listening, right? And people think that, like, for example, personally, I think that people think sometimes that I'm not listening, but I'm not as great as a listener as Bruno is. But over the years, I've realized that when I'm talking to a client or listening to things, I'm actually processing the information, and I don't say much. And then people think, oh, okay, did he get it? He's not said anything. But I am processing it. I am triangulating. I'm actually placing all that information on some 3D board, and I'm looking around it. I'm trying to find the angles to approach it, to get to it, to be able to do something about it. Until I get that, I'm going to be asking questions. I may propose something, but I still know that I don't know the whole thing fully. So if we just work on these two, it's the core and fundamental. I mean, In the last 20 years, I didn't do it. Maybe in the last 10 years, I started doing it. And now I realize that I've only started scraping the surface of it in the last 5 to 7 years, that it's really invaluable. And I can see an example already here. Bruno, you can take him on any show, on any topic, he will be able to say something about it. You'll be amazed to know the depth of information he has, and Yugo is the witness to it. So the reason I'm being practical here is because we are all coming to Bruno's show, but we're missing the point, the greatness about why he's so great, because he's always listening, and he knows what to say next and which points to pick up. Whether he's reading from his Restreams messages or LinkedIn messages or Twitter, or he's listening to me or Yugo, he knows like the next thing to say, and I'm always trusting him on it because I know he has picked up the sentence already that he has to say next, and when I pause, he'll be saying it next. So I'm going to stop now. But these are the 1.5 skills you need to have.
So now you completely destroy my listening, right? Because you talk so much about me that I'm like, oh man, I can't say anything anymore.
Sorry if I've taken away your chance to say something.
No,
Yeah,
it's all
I
good,
just
man. No, it's all great. So go ahead, Hugo.
yeah, I just shared Max added here, listening with empathy, and I just want to say a quick hello to Harrynet, Aleida, and IT Learner, who just sent some comments here. We'll go through them also. But just to not miss some comments before, I think also was Max here. He commented about going to the problem, and one thing that I think I can add here to Manny's thing is about. Sorry, I shown the wrong message here. Here. So Max said here. Sorry. We need to get started. I think that we need to get started because about the problem that we are trying to solve. So it's very connected to listening. Like for me, one skill that I would leverage here is to focus on the problem or finding the focus. I think that's something that really drives us to the right decisions. And what's a better way to find the focus? I think listening is something that's very important to understand what's going on, what you need to do, and then you'll get some inputs about what you should do, the actions that you should take. So just want to get this opportunity of Max message here.
That's great. So I see Aline saying hello. I miss you. Hey Aline, how are you doing? Aline works on campus. She's a volunteer and very active on Campus Party, right? So hey Aline, great to see you here. That's great. There's lots of cool comments, but just one thing I want to say from what Manny was talking about and what Yugo was talking about here in terms of listening with empathy and listening as the most important skill. It's a whole idea that we started with that actually, right? We started talking about curiosity, and curiosity is an important skill because when you just listen, right? And all you do is sit there and listen, and like Mani said, that sometimes he's just there listening, and people are like, is he paying attention? Right? Is he here? And there are going to be parts of what the other person's saying is that it's not going to be clear, right? Because look, we all have communication problems, right? All of us have. So when I try to explain something and I'm not always clear, right? And then if all we do is listen and we don't dig deeper, we don't ask clarifications, we are not curious, right? All we do is listening. Then what happens is that we end up listening on face value, right? And so when a customer, for example, comes to you and say, hey, I need this done tomorrow, right? Or your boss comes to you and say, oh, we are already late, and you just listen and you take this at face value, you don't engage with the other person. And what happens is that that information does not mean anything, right? Because it may lack completely context. When your customer says, I need this for tomorrow, we talked about this last week, right? When the customer says, I need this for tomorrow, what he's actually saying, right? He might be saying, look, I'm going to do a demo tomorrow for my boss, and I need something working so my boss can see it, right? Or he might be saying, I'm going to have 100,000 customers accessing this tomorrow, and he needs to hold up, right? And so which one of those he's saying, right? We don't know. And so if you just take on face value, we think, oh, the customer needs this for tomorrow with all the features working everything perfectly for 100,000 people. And then we get crazy. We're like, oh no, we're so late, right? So, we do say listening, right? And I totally 100% agree with everything that Mani said. I just want to add that part that we do say listening, but a lot of people say, okay, that's my important skill. I'm just going to sit down and listen, right? But if you don't ask, if you don't engage, right? So that's why I'm just going to add one word to what Manny said and say is listening, yes, but it's what we call active listening, right? So you listen by asking questions, by interacting, by paying attention, by looking at the other person, right? I think it's amazing when we have this here, we have a conversation and I can see Mani, I can see Yugo, and we, look at them, and unfortunately, I cannot see everyone here, right? But when you see the other person right in front of you, or even across the computer, and you can really understand their feelings, right? So, for example, when Yugo does this awesome work. He does what we call the why workshop, right? And so Yugo runs the why workshop, where he has to help the other person to find their life's purpose, right? And so how can you find the other person's life purpose if you're not listening, if you're not asking questions, if you're not digging deep, right? But not only that, if you're not looking at the person, right? So we do the why workshop with camera on or in person, because I know I've had people coming. I had people traveling to come to my house to do a why workshop here, because we got to see eye to eye, because if you're helping the other person communicate better, right, you have to see what they're doing. So I think that's a very, very important thing. Not active listening, and just kind of complements what Manny was talking about, right? Communication is so important.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing there is also, you said something very important there, and I want to give another angle to it. Is if we don't do that, so there's two things we could do, right? We could probably interrupt that person and try to solutionize. We do that sometimes, but also we may listen, we may hear the person throughout, but we actually not actively listen, like as you were saying, and then we say something, which is again either we trying to solutionize. There's a likelihood that the other person actually has come from a wrong or incorrect point of view, and actually they need help, they don't know about it, and you're the person who can guide them by firstly, should have actively listened. Then you could have told them, you want something tomorrow, right? But don't go for that big thing that you want tomorrow. Why don't we just do you this other thing, which is representative of the big thing, and the rest of the things are simulations, and you may not use them or need them, but we can deliver them flawlessly in a shorter period of time, as opposed to you wanting the whole thing, because you'll never have the time to demo the whole thing. So there's no point in spending time on all of the stuff, because your boss only has 5 minutes attention span because he or she is so busy. There's no point trying to show them the whole 9 or 21 or 81 yards, whatever the saying goes, right? They only have 5 minutes attention span. You have a 5-minute window to impress them, show them the best things in that 5 minutes. Let's spend time on that 5 minutes instead of you solutionizing, saying, no, you didn't agree with this on there, and we will try to get it done for you, but and going in a whole different direction, instead of thinking, what can we do to help this person, but also at the same time reorient their thinking so that they understand what they're asking for is slightly different from what they should be asking for, or very different from what they should be asking for. And you know what? If we bring that, if we actively listen, and then we can convince that other person better, because we got a lot of the data that the other person doesn't have, listening to the other person already first, and then convincing them, because you have the data, because you can only convince someone when you have the data, that this is not the right approach, let's take it differently.
Yeah,
right?
because
And then is a better quality discussion, and the outcome is better because at least the other party will say, you know what, I'm going to call my boss and postpone it because maybe we need more time. You're right. And maybe we don't need to show everything, but even if we don't need to show everything, we need more time and do the minimal requirement first, but we'll buy some time and we don't need to rush, even though we're not going to show everything.
Right. Because the reality, Money, is that we are all terrible communicators, right? We are, and they are, right? So if you don't help each other to communicate better, to understand better each other, then we always gonna get this whole thing half baked, right? It's just gonna understand half of it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And well, I think we have some questions here. Let's see. From I think we stop here. From Alaide, I think.
Hey, Mohammed.
Hi, hey Mohammed. You're talking about neurons also using on deep learning. When you are talking about, we are talking about neurons and neurons activity. And Harry,
Yeah, so
Ned.
just to comment on what Mohammed says here, right? Neurons
Yeah.
are also using deep learning. That's right? So if you want to create a skill, and deep learning is a skill, right? You have to get the right neurons to activate, and so that's totally right. So that's why Mohammed, that if you practice deep learning or deep working, right? So every day, right? So that means like I be in the zone every day. So even if you can just do for 1 minute, right? Oh, I'm just gonna be totally focused, no distractions, nothing, for just 1 minute today, right? So you put a clock, right? You have all those distractions coming at your way, but you're gonna try to be focused for 1 minute, and then tomorrow I'm going to try to be focused for 2 minutes, and then after tomorrow I'm going to try to be focused for 3 minutes, right? So all of these, you strengthen your neurons to actually get in the zone faster, right? And be able to keep for longer, right? So yeah, Mohammed, so neurons are also very necessary there.
Cool. And Harry Ned said about interview as a big hypocrisy. He shared here like interviewer don't use this thought, but rather after joining code review, what the hell is this? Use English join. So I think that's I don't remind here which part of the discussions that you get, Harry. If you want to go deeper here with your question or what you want to know, please go ahead here and talk more with us on the chat. And bro, let's see what else. We have quite a lot of questions here. And sorry because getting lost here on the chat.
I think we have a lot more viewers today than we had the last time, Bruno. I think it's a good thing, but that's going to increase the quality of the questions that are also going to come in, hopefully, or at least the flux of the questions.
Yeah.
Let me help you out. Yugo, pick up another point that. Okay, so I think Pedro is saying one of my first feedbacks on my new job was to speak objectively, straight to the point. Be objective is really difficult. So that's an interesting point, isn't it? Yeah. And Pedro also says we all like to talk too much. So yeah, I think both of them go very well, isn't it? What do you have to say about that, Yugo?
Sorry.
Speak
Objectively.
Yeah, speak objectively and straight to the point.
Yeah. Well, what I can say about that, I think there's in some teams I see it working very well with this approach, but I think it depends a lot on the profile. I like it because how can I say? I'm not the type of guy that says things so straightforward. It depends on the people that I'm talking to. So some people prefer to be more to have more context, to be more welcoming messages than being straight objective and direct to the point. So yeah, I think I will go with it depends on the people that you are talking with. Uh, some of them prefer it, some of them doesn't work very well. um, I'm not sure if you guys have the same perception, but for me, it really depends on the people that we are directing, the public that we are talking to.
What do you think, Bruno? I'm going to let you have a few words on this instead of me jetting in.
So sorry guys. As I said, I'm on 3G and I lost the connection. So I just got back right here. So I don't even know. So that's that on my first. That's the Pedro's discussion here on my first feedbacks.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Pedro is right. Right, being objective is very hard. Right. So actually, if your job pushes you to do that, right? As it looks like, right? If your boss can see that and telling you these feedbacks, because look, guys, there's one thing that is important for us to remember: is that we think when we think, but in reality, we only think when we speak. So when we are unable, right, to express things in a objective way, in a clear way, what happens is that we're not thinking clear, right? And so that, Pedro, is an awesome thing for you to do, for you to start thinking about and practice, right? Practice with everyone, right? Practice explaining things to other people. Practice by sharing ideas that you have. Practice by teaching things for others, right? Practice by coming here with us, right? Come on, you should come here in the next session. Come here with us and discuss a topic, right? Because the more you do that, Pedro, the better you're going to be, the more the more able to express ideas you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you went offline a little bit, but Yugo was talking and saying something really interesting, and his perspective was, it depends. It depends on the context, and he's not an individual who likes to just straightforward say things. He like of course, that's Yugo's personality as well, and I respect that, and it makes sense. So, I have two angles to this. Yes, you want to be clear, objective, but you can't do that all the time. Remember, you look like a robot if you did that everywhere with everybody, right? We couldn't, Yugo and I couldn't collaborate online if that's all the thing. We will have a flowery way of going about with a topic, but of course there are going to be times like if you're presenting to a number of people or talking to important people who don't have more than 5 minutes to listen to you to say yes or no. You can't have a flowery conversation. You need to have conversation that will help them make the decisions pronto, right? So there you got to be objective, and there you got to be clear and straightforward and to the point. But if you're talking to your team members, of course, be objective, clear, straightforward, but less robotic, and also less brief, because we have this issue in the software industry, and I've been having this since I've been in the industry. I'll ask somebody what's an array, and they'll give you like a 3-word Wikipedia definition, right? And then you ask them again what it is, and so after 20 questions, then you know what an array is, right? They could have said that in 3 or 4 sentences instead of 20 questions, right? So in examples like this, and in the world of technology, sometimes it's hard to be brief with your answers, which is what I have been always talking about. Is people say, oh, you're taking a bit long to explain that, but sometimes if I just say a couple of things, then people don't know what it is still, right? Because technology is so broad, and everything sounds the same. I need to give it a little more material for it to like then become more relevant for them to ask the more specific questions, right? Otherwise, they're asking 20 questions to get to that specific point, and then they'll be asking the real questions, right? So I kind of sort of save time in that sense. So it's a hard battle, right? You can't get it right. You cannot get everybody happy, and then you're never on the spot with straight to the point, objective, right? Sometimes you're meandering around it, and depends on how strict people are whether they accept it or not, right? So that's my view on it. So I cannot be fully in context, in situations where if it's like a short period meeting presentation, you only have a 1 minute, 5 minute, 3 minutes, 20 minutes window, you got to be straight to the point, right? Whereas there are places and points where you can have a little bit extra time and say more things and be, of course, say objective, but also have a little bit more material.
Awesome.
Pedro just answer here that he agree about depends on the audience, and yeah, I really think that there's a couple of audience, but I think one thing that I would be do a double effort if your team is asking to become more objective. That is because the culture or the way they work need such kind of communication. Such kind of communication is much more effective for them. So so in this kind, I think actually it's like this social activity that we have to listen and also have effective communication between others. So I think it's connect really well about what we are talking here.
It's group consensus, isn't it? And it depends. Like, for example, if you're presenting at a conference, it cannot be a group consensus. There are strict rules of presenting in that podium. If you're going to a meeting in a company, you can't be like, oh, let's decide whether I should take 20 minutes to answer this. You only have 5 minutes meeting, right? But if, as you said, if it's communication in a team, on a pull request, or in a meeting, or other forms of communication, then it's a group consensus that this is how we want all the time. And if you want to know more, then we'll say expand on it, or we'll have a meeting.
Well, I think Bruno just say to me that we already reached 1 hour here, and I really didn't see the time passing here. So sorry for get out.
Actually, technically, we still have 2 minutes, but I'll give it, I'll give everybody a chance to expand on that.
So I before reaching the end of the session, I think something that is really a good thing here in the out of the box session is if you have bring any book to share and to put to the audience today about this topic or any of them.
Yes. Okay. So come on. Who? I need to go get my book there. Right. So
interesting. I have.
Take this one.
I usually have books to recommend, and today I do not have one that I can immediately talk about.
Well, so I will go with mine here, and I'll give you guys a couple of time to pick one.
I've got a big book.
I got it. Mine is so big book. Sorry, it's the Portuguese title, but it's the 7 Habits of People, Highly Effective People. It's from the Stephen Covey. I really like this book because it gives you a lot of way to figure out what is about yourself, what to help you find some aspect of yourself, and then being effective with your actions. So a bit related to getting some focus and doing important decisions or deciding for important things. So I think that's quite a great book for me, at least worked well for me. And yeah, I think Bruno, do you want to share yours?
No, I want to mention what Harry said here, right? Why 7 habits? Why not 6 or why not 8? That's a very, very good point, Harry. So why? Look, that is the beauty of effective and concise communication we're talking about here, right? So when we're talking about it's not about the number, right? So when we're talking about something that you want to help people to improve, right? You want to help people to move forward. You have to be concise and you have to help them move, but not be, the idea is not to be too simple, right? You have to be very simple to help people move and do the next step, but not too simplistic that they actually have no result, right? So whoever wrote the book, Harry, understood that seven, those are the 7 habits that are important, right? If he added one more, if he did 8 habits, he would add in a habit that was not so important. And if he was doing 6 habits, he thought that he was removing a habit that was fundamental, right? So that is, when we talk about effective communication, we have to be able to think about. So, for example, when I wrote the email today, I mentioned 3 things, right? Out of 7 that I wanted to say, I decided to choose 3 that were the most important ones that for me to pass my message. So, Harry, every time you're communicating something, what you're doing is that you're selecting from everything you know, from all your experience, from all the projects you participate, from all the questions you know how to answer, for all the technology that you are selecting the right amount of information to help the other person do the next step, right? So I thought that was such a deep question, that Harry. I think he was actually making fun of the book, right? But I think that was such a deep question, because that's exactly what effective communication is all about, Harry. Is for you to choose the right amount, the right things to learn, right? So now I've got a book that is a very thick book, right? And I've been looking at this book here in my bookcase since we decided to do this book thing here in the very first session. And I'm always thinking, okay, I want to talk about that book, but when I'm going to be able to talk about that crazy book here, right? Because it's not a computer book, right? It's actually, there's this kind of golden leaf and leather case, right? It's pretty awesome. So this book here is a book by Douglas Adams. It's called the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right?
Uh-huh.
This particular one here it's a very nice one, because he has several of the books included in one, right? So this is the complete and unabridged version of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's a fun book, right? So it's a comic story, right? And by the way, if you watch the movie, the movie is great. Actually, the guys did a great work, especially on the visuals, right? But the movie has no comparison to the book, guys. I want to just make sure that you understand that. But why I'm using Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guides to the Galaxy when you're talking about communication and effective communication, because Douglas Adams is very prolific, right? He talks about too many things at the same time. He makes too many things. When you see his essays and his discussion and his presentations, he makes a lot of different things, right? So, but at the same time, he makes it very effective, right? He makes humor. When you get the book, you don't want to put it down. It's a very thick book, right? You don't want to put it down. He makes crazy things, right? There's actually a phrase in the book that you read the phrase, and the end of the phrase says, that phrase doesn't mean what you think it means. And then you go back and you reread the phrase, and you're like, oh yes, it doesn't mean what I thought it meant, right? So he has, he uses entertainment and fun and lots of things, right, to pass a message, right? Although he crams a lot of different topics, a lot of different contexts. So I think Douglas Adams is an awesome communicator, and reading that book can help you think about that. So thanks a lot, Manny, for putting the link there. It's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I have a couple of recommendations myself. One of them is not a book, but it's a GitHub repository that Yugo and I are working on. Please contribute to it. It doesn't have a name, but the repository is called Chatbot Conversations. So I think that'll be the start. And I have got 2 other books to recommend. One of them is The Pragmatic Programmer. Pretty much everybody knows about it in the industry. It's a bit dated, but I think the principles in the book are still very relevant. And the other book, because somebody already started with the 7 number, I have 7 languages in 7 weeks. It's a good book to exercise uh, your muscle memory for writing code, and flexing between different languages. So I think the whole combination of 7 habits, the Hitchhiker's Guide, 7 languages, and Pragmatic Programmer is going to give multiple weekends of reading, because we're going to be here in a couple of weekends, right? So there's enough time for them to read those 4 books, contribute to our repository, and come fresh 2 weeks from now, roughly.
Awesome.
Cool. And
So just a quick thing here, Hugo. Someone said if listening to podcasts is good. Yes, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever you like to learn, right? So here's something about books and podcasts and videos on YouTube. Doesn't matter, right? Whatever it is that you like to watch, to listen, to read, right? The important thing is if you're gonna think about it after you read, listen, you watch the video, right? So because if all you do is listen and go away, if all you do is read and go away, or watch a video and go away, none of those things work, right? Neither read a book, nor watch a video, nor a podcast. None of this works because it's just pass through you, right? If you really want to learn something, right, you have to think about it, right? So it's great, right? You read a chapter of the book, close the book and think about it, right? Think about what you read. Think about the lessons you're going to take from there. Think about the things that you're going to take action based on that, right? Same thing, you watch a podcast, right? You watch a podcast, stop the podcast and think about, okay, so what those guys just said, that's great, right? I'm going to apply this. You were watching Here With Us. You know how you should be watching Here With Us? With your cell phone or a computer or a notepad, taking notes, right? So when Mani says, oh, you should read that book, and you think, that's an interesting book, but it's not my topic, you don't do anything. When Bruno says, oh, you should read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, oh, that's a great thing, let me read that. And then you write down, say, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I'm going to read it. I'm going to buy this book next week, right? So put that in your calendar. Take an action on it. So if you take action on the things that you learn or you listen, you think about that, that makes a big difference. So those are saying learn by doing, right? Yes.
Exactly. I mean,
Right.
it's a great point you made, Bruno, and that reminded me this cone of learning that I keep talking about very often. And I've shared a link, and thanks Hugo for sharing it across. If you go to that link, and I normally don't send one link, I send images, because lots of different images will give you an idea of what I'm trying to say, and what Bruno just said, and what somebody else had said by learn by doing. You will find in that there's something called active learning and passive learning. Most of us are busy in the passive learning, which is 75% of the activities we do. But the active learning is 35%, which most of us don't do. For example, what we are doing here on this show comes very close to the 30% of active learning, whereas everybody else, and of course we do that, I do that as well, we spend a lot of time doing passive learning, which is 70% of effectiveness of, 70% of the time we do things. And you can see the degree of effectiveness by based on how what you do, right? You retain more information and knowledge that you say and you do, as opposed to only you see, read, hear, and things like that. So it depends on what you want to do. How much effectiveness do you want to get? Read a book, but apply it. Then come here to the show and say it and do something about it. And afterwards, run a workshop on it. Do a presentation. That's when you've really grained it in.
Mm-hmm.
cool. And I just want to connect one thing that I wish to add, but because of the time, we don't have so much to discuss around. But one very important skill, I think, to stay relevant here is to share your content, share your knowledge. I think something that will help a lot to practice this active learning, because you'll be creating the content, you'll be talking with others, and and condensing the ideas that or the thing that you learned, just learn it from any source. So that's something that I think we should be talking in the next session with more
Yes,
time.
absolutely. It's a great
Yeah,
idea to take to the
we
next.
can talk about learning in the next session. That would be a great thing. So maybe next session, how about we start next session with that pyramid, and we discuss how we can
Oh,
apply that pyramid in our lives. How about that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to
yeah.
just make a note of that in here, the learning cone, and there you go. It's done. The link is in here. We should all have the link now.
Cool. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna put the link to this to the image I just shared here. Right. So yeah.
Okay. Uh,
Yeah,
you got the
Carlos,
yeah.
it is worth it is when you study for certification, all these works for certification too. Yeah, so let's talk about this next session, how you learn and some effective ways that we can apply the cone of learning.
So, uh, I think we reached the end of the session. Sorry, guys, it was too fast. But yeah, I believe that we did a great work here. I hope that we did a great work here. Thanks for the audience that today was very participative, sending messages. I really appreciate your efforts being here and collaborating to this session. And we hope to see all of you guys in the next session if you want to discuss about learning and hear these two legends what they thought about learning. Yeah, it will be totally welcome and we'll have very good insights about that. So
Okay, so
thank
look,
you also, Bruno and Mani. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
just
Bruno.
Hugo. So IT Learn is saying that said his question was not answered, and his question was about if it was worthwhile to do DevOps being a developer, right? So yes, IT Learner, DevOps is a great opportunity right now in the market. So we can talk more about that, but yes, it's very worthwhile to know DevOps, to learn, because look, a very important skill for developers to deliver code. That's what DevOps does. So yes, that's good. Do DevOps, says Douglas. Yes.
Cool. So thank you,
And
everyone.
let me thank Yugo here for hosting this session here today. Right. Thanks a lot, because not only hosting the session, it's out the background work to do to get this whole thing going. So thanks a lot, Yugo. That's awesome. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thanks, Bruno.
Thank you, Hugo. Thank you,
Thanks,
audience.
Mani.
Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you,
Thanks everyone.
everyone.
And especially thanks for you to watching us. That's amazing, right? So
Cool.
that's great.
See you, everybody. Take care. Bye
See you
bye.
next session. Bye bye.